I could generously discuss pre-modern metropolises with some of you back in May. I would just like to remind one point. In our research, a city's claim to significance plays an essential role in its status as a metropolis. Its own claim to be significant and the claim confirmed by others. Such perceptions of significance are not only derived from the current power and size of the city and its elites, but also from its glorious history or by a mythical founder. What essentially controls the perception of significance, to my understanding, is the presence of rulers and religious cults. All early Mediterranean and European cultures very specifically endowed their kings with religious power. Local cults at the ruler's seat thus could become empire-wide focal points of political power and unity. In this small case study focuses on the question of how Paris acquired metropolitan significance as early as the 6th and 7th centuries through the presence of rulers and important saints, although the city did not historically occupy a prominent position among the cities of Gaul, and was hardly larger than an unfortified suburb of Rome or Constantinople. In these 2 centuries, a close topographical and symbolic connection of royal residence, royal burial, and veneration of saints emerged, which is constitutive for the dynamic development of Paris throughout the Middle Ages. The first all-Frankish king Clovis, his wife Clotilde, and their eldest son Childebert settled the royal memoria permanently in Paris, and this was not changed by the fact that King Dagobert I and his successors moved the royal burial only a few kilometers outside the city to Saint-Denis. One must be very clear about this, even though Saint-Denis was a city in its own right in the Middle Ages, and it was closely linked to Paris through its founding saint, the first Parisian bishop, Saint-Denis. For Dagobert and his successors, Paris remained the focal point of their kinship, with the tomb of Saint-Denis increasingly popular in the Frankish kingdom. They only added another ideological and topographical support to this symbolic capital. Before the Abbey of Saint-Denis monopolized the funerals of rulers in the 7th century, Clovis I and his son Childebert had founded their own funeral churches on the southern bank of the Seine, with the churches of Saint-Apôtre, Saint-Pierre, later Sainte-Geneviève, and Saint-Vincent-Sainte-Croix, later Saint-Germain-des-Prés. Just before the foundation of Saint-Apôtre Saint-Pierre, Clovis received the honorary titles of Consul and Augustus from the Roman Emperor Anastasius in 508. Paris became his consular seat. The 2 patron saints of the new basilica, Peter and the Apostles, indicate that the king had no less comparative examples in mind for his main residence than Rome and Constantinople. The Roman Basilica of St. Peter and the Basilica of the Apostles in Constantinople, the Apostoleion, which was mentioned by Babette. Gregory of Tours consequently refers to Paris several times as the seat of the kingdom and Clovis as the new Constantine. The reasons for Clovis' decision in favor of Paris are disputed in research. While older research mainly referred to the central geographical situation and military strategic aspects, in recent decades, the religious significance of the city, which is famous saints, has come to the fore. Clovis' decision to be buried in a new building on the cemetery site of the later Mont Sainte-Geneviève probably perpetuated the family devotion to Genoveva. This saint was already considered the patron saint of Paris around 500, who is said to have kept both Attila's Huns and the Frankish troops under Clovis' father, Childerich, from plundering Paris. The new basilica served as the burial place of Genoveva, the Frankish royal couple, his daughter and two granddaughters. Even though Merovingian Paris had hardly extended beyond the borders of the Ile de la Cité and nearly nothing of the Roman infrastructure on the left bank of the Seine was still in function apart from cemeteries, the city then acquired a symbolic capital and a topographical pattern that had their full impact in the rise of Paris as the French capital and metropolis in the 13th and 14th centuries. The new burial place of Clovis on the left bank of the Seine, let's see. No, that's it. I'll just show here. On the left bank of the Seine was located at an ancient necropolis. Continuity with the late antique cemetery church can be assumed here. This situation can be generalized in late antique Gaul. That's it. A characteristic belt of necropolises developed around the fortificated Roman civitates due to the prohibition of the burial intramuros. Those cemeteries outside the walls were supplemented in Christian late antiquity by sacred buildings in which the incipient veneration of martyrs and saints took place. Prominent tombs, such as those of Genoveva or Clovis, were placed in the care of monastic communities, which were endowed with estates and legal titles by the Frankish high nobility. Through their saints and kings, these early monasteries were not only sacred centers, but large landlords with all feudal rights and duties. Urbanization in later Paris happened at the merging of several ecclesiastical territories. The ideological value that had the Merovingian royal tombs for the French capital in the later Middle Ages is illustrated by narrative sources and also illustrations. A monk of Saint-Denis commented around 1275 on the divisions of the Merovingian kingdom, quotation, "Whoever reads this chronicle must know that we call only those kings of France, who held the throne in the city of Paris." Paris and the kinship in France were, in the interpretation of the 13th century, when Paris was on its way to becoming the largest European metropolis, inseparably linked from the earliest times. The 15th century illumination from the Grande Chronique de France, shown here, depicts the founding of Saint-Denis, the abbey, by King Dagobert, against the unmistakable late medieval skyline of the city of Paris. During the long reign of Childebert in the first half of the 6th century, the expansion of the sacred topography was pursued, especially under the direction of the energetic Bishop of Paris, Germanus. Most important was Childebert's new burial church with the dedications of Saint-Vincent, Sainte-Croix on the south bank of the Seine. For this foundation, the king brought back from his Iberian campaign important relics of the martyr Vincent from Zaragoza and a golden cross reliquary from Toledo. The new basilica not only served as the final resting place of Childebert and his family, but after them also of 3 other kings and many family members. It was thus, according to Patrick Perrin, la première nécropole des rois de France. Bishop Germanus, who was already venerated during his lifetime, was also buried in the Basilica of Saint-Vincent Sainte-Croix in 576. A local cult quickly established around the bishop's tomb, whose name was finally transferred to the church, Saint-Germain-des-Prés. As in the case of Saint Geneviève, the cult of a local saint established itself better and faster in the popular veneration than the patron saints and relics of ancient metropolises or distant episcopal cities. The poem by Venantius Fortunatus, De Ecclesia Parisiaca, written around 567, suggests that the cathedral in Merovingian Paris was also rebuilt in the time of King Childebert. Excavations under the forecourt of Notre Dame in the 19th and 17th century uncover the remains of the largest episcopal church in Merovingian Gaul. This impressive building symbolized the central claim of Merovingian kings to rule over the United Frankish Kingdom, just as the monumental new building of Notre Dame, several hundred years later, symbolized the rising power of the Capetian kingship over France under King Philip Augustus, around 1200. In both cases, the royal claim to rule over the kingdom was closely linked to the city and church of Paris. So it's not surprising that in the dynastic disputes after Childebert's death, the rule over Paris always played a major role. Last point. The densification of the sacred topography in and near Paris is not only the most obvious indication of the central role of Paris of the Merovingian dynasty, but at the same time an essential prerequisite for the later process of urbanization of the Paris area. In the approximately 250 years of Merovingian rule, a belt of more than 20 churches and oratories was built on the southern and northern banks. Similar building activities characterized the situation on the main island, Île de la Cité. Here arose in Merovingian times, next to the cathedral group in the east and to the royal palace in the west, among others, another church of Germanus, Saint-Germain-les-Vieux, another oratory dedicated to Saint-Denis, Saint-Denis-du-Pas, a chapel of Saint Martin, and a female monastery dedicated to Saint-Martial de Limoges. With Martin, Dionysius, Martial, and Germanus, leading Frankish saints were gathered in the direct vicinity of the ruler's residence in the 7th century, underlining the claim of Paris as the outstanding royal residence of the Franks. How highly the Merovingians themselves valued the importance of the sacred landscape of Paris for their royal house becomes clear from the decree of the Queen Balthilde in the 7th century, widow of Clovis II. She listed the churches of Saint-Apôtre-Saint-Pierre, Saint-Germain-des-Prés, and Saint-Denis in Paris as the most important churches, Seniores Basilicae, in the Frankish kingdom. Thank you very much.